If you've ever thought you might be seeing slower growth rates in the summer in your meat rabbit grow outs, this is not in your head. This is a real thing that happens for some real reasons. So let's talk about that. What goes on in the summer? You'd probably be inclined to think that summer would be a time when meat rabbits would have some of their higher growth rates, because we think about summer as being, the season of growth when everything is growing, from plants to animals, wild animals, everybody, right? Spring is for breeding and birth, and then summer's that period of growth, but it actually can slow down your meat rabbit's growth rate. So the major reason why that happens is heat. Plain and simple, it's pretty easily explained, but it does happen. And what happens is that, as it gets hotter and conditions become a little more stressful for your rabbits, they're apt to eat less. And of course, if they're eating less, then they're just not going to grow as quickly. And this can kind of be a bottoms up issue. So in other words, there can be some impact on your does and your bucks, on everybody in your rabbitry. They're kind of all going to be similarly affected. As a matter of fact, the does and the bucks may feel the heat more than your kind of medium age grow outs. Young kits can be pretty susceptible because they're in a nest together, because they're nursing on mom, they're relying on a lot going on. So, of course, with the does and the bucks, we're not as concerned with their weight gain and growth rate. We're concerned with them maintaining a healthy body weight and maintaining their best reproductive status. But if they're stressed and not drinking, especially if you have a doe that is, has a younger litter of kits, her milk production can actually go down. And if her milk production goes down, and especially during those first 2 to 3 weeks of a new litter, then their available food source goes down. As you creep towards 3 weeks and the kits start coming out of the nest and start nibbling on their own, well, they have more food available to them. So hopefully the impacts are less. Now, I'll say I don't do a lot of breeding in the summer, but I have had summer litters. And if we're doing all those comfort measures and good summer care, like we've talked about in other videos and other articles, then you can kind of mitigate the effects of this. I've never really had too much impact on the kits, but I've certainly had does that looked hot, that looked stressed, and that probably were not eating as much as they should. And then again, like it goes out to all the other grow outs. As even the grow outs themselves, as we know, rabbits are really susceptible to heat. They're going to do better in cold than they do in heat. So, they're very likely to actually feel the impacts of heat. The most ideal growing temperatures for meat rabbits, or the most ideal temperatures, period, are like in the 60-degree range. 50 to 70, they're pretty comfortable. Even up into the 70s, they're pretty comfortable, but they really start to feel the heat as it creeps into the upper 70s. And by the time you hit 80 and 90, then you're apt to come in the morning and notice things like maybe they're leaving more food in their bowls those days. You may see them a little more hot, just kind of lazing around, less active. And when they're less active, they're going to eat less. One of the reasons that they'll eat less is that, as hindgut fermenters, all the fiber they're taking in, that's actually producing heat in their gut. And so they may need to work more and put more energy into cooling down. So, there's a few reasons that they're apt to eat less. One is kind of the same reasons we don't want to eat that much when it's 90 degrees outside. It's hot, you're tired, you're just putting a lot of energy into trying to stay cool, into cooling off. Rabbits don't sweat. They don't have sweat glands. All their heat radiation is going to happen through their ears. So, they're working harder at that. And so they're just not taking in as many calories. So this has some kind of impacts, you know, it's not necessarily that there's much you can do about it. You can, you know, you give your rabbitry the best possible management you can, but you can't control the weather. You can do, again, all those things that we've talked about, and you know, check them out, other articles, other videos where we talk about summer care and comfort measures for your rabbits, you know, but basically you're going to continue to give them good care, the best care that you can. Water, 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 water. Water is so important. Even under the best of circumstances, rabbits will drink twice as much water as they will in food volume intake. When they're hot, that can actually double. And, you know, all of that, we know they're so sensitive in their digestive tracts if it slows down, because they constantly need to be moving food through to keep their digestion going. So one of the recommendations of some of the better research that I've done, University of Michigan, Purina Mills, they're saying that because you can expect them to take in less food, it's a good idea to make sure your food is of really good quality. Now, we know that that's always important, right? But you want to be starting off with a good food that is nutrient dense, so that if they're taking in less of it, they're still getting their full nutrition, that all the vitamins and minerals and everything they need are there available to them. Some other things you can do, again, you know, do what you can with those cooling and comfort measures. Keep the water going all the time. But also, you know, try and feed earlier in the day or by the evening, even if they're not eating it when you put it in front of them. At least if it's there for those cooler times of day when they might be feeling like being a little more active, then it's there for them. What you don't want to have is a small window of time when they feel like being up, active, and eating, and there's no food or water there available to them. Then that could impact your growth rates and weight gain even more. So I don't have a solid number for you on, you know, how much you would expect to impact that. I will say I have noticed this in the summer before, and every summer can be different, and that's one of the reasons that there's no real great way to put a solid number to say expect a 25% slower growth rate. I don't think it's 25%, by the way. But I also think it would be different for everybody, because it's really going to depend on your summer, the heat of the particular summer you're in, and also your climate and location. Because, you know, obviously if you're getting more high heat and hotter days, then you may be dealing with more of that than someone in the north that has more moderated temperatures that probably don't get up into the 90s quite so often. So again, you know, good nutrition. Water is imperative. Even though we talked about fiber being a source of heat in the hindgut, I would not recommend taking any fiber away, because if you do that, then you're going to stop the guts completely and you're going to be in a bigger, worse problem. I would say, you know, select as you breed and go along and build your rabbitry, select for rabbits that do well in your climate across all your seasons. Establish a good feed program, whatever that looks like for you. For me, again, it's pellets and hay. I've got some oats in there to increase the fiber that's helping us overcome some of the issues we've had with some of that weaning enteritis, and water. And so, you know, once that's established, I'm going to continue to keep that consistent and keep that on offer. I'm not going to take anything away, like I'm not going to take the hay away. I trust that the rabbits will take what they need and they'll use it, and I'm trusting in their ability to do that. But mostly what you're going to see is that this is a result of heat stress and rabbits that just don't feel like getting up and eating, and that are putting a lot of energy into panting and cooling and trying to stay cool. But the bottom line really is just be aware of it. Be aware of it so that you're not getting nervous that something's going on in your rabbitry. Know that it's a normal thing. I guess if I had to try and nail a number to it, I would say that, you know, maybe it slows your growth by a week to 2 weeks over the summer. But again, that's really going to depend on your particular conditions and the heat that you're experiencing. As you can see right now here at 3 in the afternoon, I'm not having an issue with anybody being too lazy or tired or stressed to eat. But today's a nice breezy day in the upper 70s. We're really not hot in here at all. We're shaded in the barn here, so we're in good shape now. But I've just seen our forecast, and this is really kind of early for us. We've got like a pretty major heat wave coming in here in New England in the beginning of next week. They're saying a solid 3 days of over 90 and really high humidity that's going to push that heat index up over 105, 110. That's pretty abnormal for us. And I know I say this a lot, but it also is that we're kind of getting acclimated to the warmer weather, but we've had this kind of cool, rainy spring. And, you know, after tonight is the first day of summer, so we're coming into summer. But that makes it even more difficult. Rabbits will acclimate, and, you know, as you go on through your summer, as they do get acclimated, you may see less of an impact on those growth rates. But again, don't be surprised if it happens. It's normal. What you are looking for is that their digestive tracts remain functional. You don't want things to stop completely. That could put you into a state of GA stasis. So it's important to look for that and see if anybody needs a little extra attention or help, or if there are measures that you need to step in and take. And then just good care, you know, that's what we're looking for. So come on over to meetrabbits.org. There is an accompanying article there that has more on this topic, has some links to some research and other information that would be good to follow. One of them that I follow a lot and I can recommend is information out of the University of Michigan. And one of the reasons I like the University of Michigan, they're kind of one of my go-tos if I'm doing online research. One of the reasons is because they are the ones that I see publishing the most. So that's one of the problems with rabbit information sometimes, is that, you know, research interest from, you know, some of these larger research bodies, it just isn't there. So when I do find a source like the University of Michigan that is, you know, making an effort to actually build rabbits and meat rabbits as a topic, as opposed to one that's just, you know, mentioning rabbits here and there, but doesn't seem like it's very well thought out, then I'll pass that along to you. And those are the ones that become my go-tos. So again, thanks for being here. Hope your summer treats you well. And come on over to meetrabbits.org for more on this topic.